Let me start with you, Dalibor. It's one of these things where we knew the polls, in this case they were right, lean heavily against no. In my mind, I think Prime Minister Renzi overplayed his hand. Nevertheless, there's no denying there's a sweeping populism around the world, particularly in Western nations, where they've had enough and they want to somehow bring back past glory.
In some sense, it wasn't a surprising vote. The polls, as you said, were skewed heavily against Prime Minister Renzi. He nevertheless took the risk and proceeded with the reform and the referendum, and he lost. However, this was different from the Brexit and the Trump votes, if you will, in the sense that what Renzi was asking people to do was to say yes to a sweeping deep constitutional reform. So in fact, whatever way the vote would have gone, people would have voted in a way anti-establishment.
I hear that part now, but also what we're talking about is someone who says, hey, I'll step down. Someone left of center saying I'll step down. And a part of that had to be attractive because it wasn't enough of a deterrent for his fellow countrymen to say, okay, we need you in there so badly, we'll accept this.
Well, the problem... oh, sorry.
No? Yeah, I think this was a sweeping rejection of the ruling political elites in Italy. There's deep-seated unhappiness with the current state of the economy. In Italy, you have 35% youth unemployment in the country. Real per capita income has actually declined since 2000 in Italy. The euro has actually been a very, very bad experiment for the Italian people. The euro doesn't benefit Italy. Perhaps it does benefit certainly the Germans. But for most Italian people, the euro has been an economic disaster. And I think this is a very clear message to Mr. Renzi and the socialist elites in Italy that millions upon millions of Italians are really fed up with the current status quo in the country, sending a very clear signal there across Italy, but also across Europe as well. And this signal, by the way, Capri, has been echoed here in this country. I mean, in Italy, there's one poll out that goes, hey, it doesn't feel like home anymore. 52% of Italians feel that way. And people echoed those same themes in America as well in this past election, didn't they?
Sure, absolutely. I think that what we are seeing is, I think, a pervasive cry amongst the global electorate in a concern about both the economy and national security, as well as national identity. In the case of Italy, I think that the other guest is absolutely right, that it is unique from Brexit and from the United States in the fact that it was a constitutional referendum that would make significant changes. But I think that we also need to look at some of the other moves that are underway in other European nations. So, for example, obviously in France, we have a matchup between François Fillon, who was the former prime minister under Sarkozy, who is matched up against Marine Le Pen of the Front National party. I happen to have lived in France for almost a year in the 1990s, so I was familiar with the Front National and Marine Le Pen's father, and that sort of uber nationalist movement. So, you see that going on. On the flip side, you see Austria recently reject a super nationalist, far-right candidate just in the last few days. But in the context of the EU and the euro in particular, what this situation with Renzi, whether he steps down tomorrow, after the holidays, or in 6 months, this does set up the insurgent party, the Five-Star Party, which is a little bit more nationalist, is a little bit more populist, led by Beppe Grillo, to come in and potentially, create an alliance and have a referendum specifically on the participation of Italy as in the euro as a currency. And interesting enough, he's not a politician; he's a former comic, right? There's a lot of parallels between him and Trump.
Dalibor, so let me go back to you on this.
Sure.
The Netherlands, I think we're going to see the founder of the True Fin Party perhaps win there. We have France. I mean, there's something sweeping, a sweeping rejection of Brussels, Germany, and the ECB. Those kind of institutions, there's a sweeping rejection of them in this one country, one sort of big, gigantic, united Europe that just hasn't worked.
Well, there clearly is a certain malaise going through the Western world, not just through Europe. The Eurozone has its own economic problems, of course. Voters are reacting to those. Countries on the Mediterranean periphery were affected more strongly than others by the global economic downturn. But the vote in Italy really was a vote about Prime Minister Renzi. If you ask voters a highly complex question and accept expect a yes or no answer. You're going to receive a one-word answer, but it will be an answer to a different question. In this case, people wanted to express really their disappointment with Renzi, who arrived in the office with high hopes of reform on the labour market side, consolidating public finances, and really none of those hopes have materialized.
Well, it's been 62 governments since World War II, and none of them have really lived up to
65,
expectations.
actually.
65. Thank you, guys. Thank you very much. Really appreciate it.